All right, everyone, thanks for staying tuned in. And as I mentioned before the music break, I'm here with Richard Clayton, a clinical therapist here at the Brownsville campus at UTRGV. Richard, thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem. So, the way I always like to try to, get my guests to kind of talk about their background. So, feel free to share where you grew up, where you're from, educational background, and kind of what brought you here to UTRGV.
Okay, wow. Well, so I am a Brownsville native.
Wow.
My wife and I are both, she's from Los Fresnos, I'm from Brownsville, so we are from here, we're locals. However, I took a really long route of getting here to UTRGV. This is actually my second career as a clinical therapist. My first career was in the U.S. Army. So I spent a couple decades in the Army moving around. Was not in the mental health field whatsoever. I was actually amongst other things. I started out in the military police when I was enlisted. Then I became a warrant officer and,
Oh, wow.
and a helicopter pilot.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So where did you fly, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, yeah, of course. So I'm old school. So I started out flying UH-1 Hueys.
Oh, epic.
Right,
Yeah,
very
awesome.
epic. Think Vietnam helicopter style, although I'm not that old. I joined in the 80s, so most of my instructors were Vietnam veterans. But right after that, I got advanced aircraft transition into AH-1 Cobra attack helicopters, and ultimately flew the AH-64 Apache attack helicopter.
Wow, that's awesome.
So
That's actually kind of surprising to me because I thought they only let like full-blown captains and officers. I mean, that might be a newer modern day thing, but
no, actually, that's kind of a misnomer. The warrant officers are actually most of the pilots in command, and the commission officers, they are in the leadership roles, where we're more in the technical field as pilots. So quite often you may only have one or two commissioned officers in the entire flight, possibly the company commander and platoon leaders, and the rest are all warrant officers. Warrant officers make up the bulk of the instructor pilots and all the senior pilots.
wow.
Yep.
That's really interesting. And so you spent most of your military career doing that?
Yeah, here and there and off and around and stationed. We moved from here in sunny Brownsville to middle upstate New York was my first duty station. And talk about cold, talk about culture shock, both from from a cultural aspect and a weather aspect. It does not get cold here in the valley.
Yeah, for sure, compared to up there.
But we spent a lot of time in Alabama, Georgia. I spent several tours in North Carolina at Fort Bragg, in the wonderful 82nd Airborne, learning how to fall out of perfectly good aircraft. I still don't know why pilots need to do that, but we did. Here in Texas as well, a bunch of overseas tours. I did 5 deployments, so I've got time, Korea, the Middle East, all the stuff during the usual stuff that most people did during my time frames. So that was my career before, and then after I retired from the Army, I kind of I worked at a couple different jobs. Some interesting stuff. I worked as a nature preserve manager for a while with the Nature Conservancy in Texas.
Wow.
Yeah, and so a little bit of diversity there. And then I ended up working in the Mid-Valley for several years at a food cannery where I was the quality assurance director. But because of some disability-related issues from my military service, I could just no longer physically do the job. And so I kind of started looking for a second career, or a third career, whatever you want to call it, second real career. I knew I kind of wanted to work with veterans. And then, so that was initially my kind of mindset. But I didn't really know the terms. I didn't know where I wanted to work. But I knew I wanted to work with veterans. I was thinking social work. I didn't really know much about the mental health field. As a matter of fact, I was that stereotypical veteran that kind of had that negative connotation of what mental health was about. Because if you know as a veteran yourself, there's kind of that resistance to seek mental health, to look at mental health professionals as, in derogatory manner terms and whatnot. And I was that guy. I have to admit, I was truly 100%. That stereotypical veteran that, no, I don't want to go to mental health counseling, I don't want to see a psychiatrist or psychologist. My thought of mental health was more, they were all psychiatrists and you were going to be medicated and whatnot, but I was uneducated in the matter. So I knew about social workers and all that, and I had applied for a program through the Veterans Administration for vocational rehabilitation.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so I was accepted into that program, which was very beneficial. I had a wonderful vocational rehabilitation counselor, and she listened to me, and she was a rehab counselor and a mental health counselor, which I am also. I'll get to that. And she's like, well, it sounds like not what you're looking for is becoming a social worker, is becoming a rehabilitation counselor.
Hmm.
I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I still hadn't thought about the mental health side of it yet. But I entered into the program, and it was here at UTRGV. It was in 2015. Still not thinking about mental health, but as my education progressed, and including into graduate school, I started embracing the mental health side and understanding it a lot more in depth. And lo and behold, after, I don't know, 7 or 8 short years, I became fully licensed professional counselor. But I am also a rehabilitation counselor, a certified rehabilitation counselor as well. And so I kind of went that dual path as rehab and mental health. And it really has helped me a lot in my clinical practice. I am also the clinical therapist for the Military and Veteran Success Center here at UTRGV on both campuses, by the way.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I'm kind of embedded with them a couple days a week. So I give priority to veterans and family members that are students here at UTRGV, typically non-traditional students, obviously, because they're a little bit older, have a little bit more experience, and maybe some other issues that is not mainstream. Let's just put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I work. Well, my paycheck comes from the counseling center, and the bulk of my clients are UTRGV students, traditional students. I also work again with the veteran and family member population. And that really serves me well, having both the rehab background and the mental health background. Additionally, I'm also an addictions counselor, as a licensed chemical dependency counselor. And really, I went all that route because I had a really good counselor myself, a really good VA counselor myself. And that's how I ended up here. And UTRGV has this unique position here. And by the way, everything I talk about is on both campuses, both the Brownsville and the Edinburgh campus.
Okay.
I just want to let you know that for everything we talk about today. Has a unique position because of the respect that the veterans have and whatnot. UTRGV has this unique position that I'm filling right now that is kind of coded, if you want to call it, for a veteran or veteran outreach counselor. And so that's what I do. So I specialize in that as well. But again, I see traditional students as well. So it was a long route getting here, but hey, I'm here,
Yeah, and we're glad to have you because, I know that having such a profound experience, life experience, and serving in the military for so long and seeing so many and doing so many things, and going through that journey of, having your own struggles and kind of growing and developing as a professional in different careers, so a lot of, good stuff you brought to UTRGV in terms of your experience and education.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been a real fantastic thing. I get to interact with. I get to mentor my colleagues, my other therapists, because they will come to me when they're working with, say, a veteran or family member, and they don't understand something that's going on, the lingo and all that. And I'm explaining to them, I'm bilingual. I speak English and military. And at first they thought I was kidding until they started like, what did Ricardo say?
Mm-hmm.
He used the term, and I'm just not familiar with it.
Yeah, it's really funny. Just as a quick side note, I actually met a guy once, and I was telling him we actually served in Afghanistan around the same time, and he was, I was like, oh yeah, I was in Afghanistan around that time too, and he started like grilling me on and using terms that only somebody in the military would know, and he was kind of like BS checking me.
Yeah, of course, we do that, don't we?
Yeah. And so whenever I was able to talk with him, he was like, oh, he realized it wasn't a front. Like, hey, I was actually in Afghanistan when I said I was there. Yeah,
it was. We do that, right? Consciously or unconsciously, as veterans, when someone else says they did something, we can sniff it out really quick with 3 questions. We can find out if you're BSing or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we do that. I don't know if we do that on purpose or not, but yeah, so my colleagues will ask me a question or explain something to me, and I'm like, yeah, that's true, or that's not, or that's embellishing, or that's not, and whatnot.
Yeah.
So it helps, you're right, it does help having that life experience, you know, and I come from a big background of military. My daughters, both of them actually married back into the military, into the Army. They didn't serve themselves, but at one time, both their husbands, I was in Iraq, one of my son-in-laws was in Iraq at the same time, and the other son-in-law was in Afghanistan.
Wow.
And both my daughters moved home during that year.
Yeah, that's.
And so all three wives, my wife and our two daughters, all Army wives. That's the real Army wives. Don't watch that TV program.
For sure.
They live the real Army life. So yeah, we walk the walk, you know. And so yeah, we do it, but it helps. It helps. So.
Okay, well, so kind of going on before we take our quick music break coming up, is there anything you want to kind of start going into in terms of, you know, the counseling center, or, you know, feel free to.
Sure. Like I said before, let me kind of explain, if we have time
Yeah,
before the break,
of course.
explain what we do at the counseling center. And again, everything I'm about to describe is available both on the Brownsville campus, the Edinburgh campus, and also we have we actually have a therapist one day a week at the Harlingen campus.
Oh, wow.
She's kind of works with the School of Podiatry. We have two therapists that actually specialize over at the medical school in Edinburgh as well, and then myself in Military and Veteran Success Center on both campuses. So everything, we're spread out. We try to cover all the campuses. But what the counseling center is. So the counseling center is open to all currently enrolled UTRGV students. It doesn't matter if you're an incoming freshman or getting ready to finish your PhD, it doesn't matter. Taking one class, taking 12 classes matters not to us, so long as you're currently enrolled.
Okay.
And what we provide is individual counseling as well as couples, groups, and different workshops, and we can discuss those workshops and groups later.
Okay.
And when people ask me, what's a couple? And couples, whatever you define it. It can be two best friends, it can be platonic, it can be romantic, it doesn't matter. We don't have a set what couple is.
Oh, that's
So,
great to
so
hear.
really it could be just two friends. Hey, we've been friends since high school or junior high and we're having trouble communicating. You're a couple, come on in, or whatever you want to call it yourself.
Wow.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah,
I would have
yeah.
never kind of guessed.
Yeah, and so people, when they see, oh, we do couples counseling, oh, so you have to be married? The only requirement we have is both parties have to be, or all three, or how many ever, have to be currently enrolled UTRGV students.
Okay.
So that's kind of the downside on some of it, but that's a requirement.
Okay.
So all the services are confidential, with a few exceptions, and those exceptions would be explained during screening, okay? And when I say confidential, what happens between us at the clinic stays with those few exceptions. So what it really comes down to is no parents, no professors, nobody knows, unless you disclose. Nothing's on your transcript, nothing follows you. So it really is purely confidential. And again, did I mention free? College students still like free. I think college students
Yeah,
like
for
free.
sure.
If you were going to see a clinical therapist on the outside with our credentials, you're going to start out at $100 and move up to $250 an hour for counseling.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it's a service that's offered, one of the very valuable services that's offered and quite honestly underutilized. We kind of, the analogy I like to use is, why aren't you using your services? Well, I don't know, because I'm like, would you go to Whataburger, place your order, pay for your order, and then you just drive off without getting your food? Well, if you're not utilizing some of the services here at UTRGV, such as the counseling service, you're kind of doing that. You're kind of just driving off.
Yeah.
And so again, counseling won't affect your status as a student. We don't report anything like that. We do work really closely with other departments such as Student Accessibility Services, Student Rights and Responsibility, Academic Advising, and all that. Student Health Services, another one of our partners that we work with. So, oh, did that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay, good.
definitely.
All right.
So yeah, we'll take a quick music break and we'll be right back. So stay tuned, everyone. Thanks. All right, thanks for staying tuned in, everyone. Back here again with Richard Clayton, a clinical therapist on the Brownsville campus. Well, I guess he's got presence in both campuses, but mostly here, I believe.
Right, this is my home campus, yes.
Okay, and so kind of getting back into the counseling center, so how can students make an appointment, or how do they seek services? What's their...
Sure, absolutely. So you can do it one of two ways, really. You can actually come to one of our offices and talk to our admin, and they'll schedule you right then and there. Again, our counseling center here at the UTRGV and the Brownsville campus is on the second floor of the student union.
Yeah, basically right above the game room.
Right above the game room, yeah. Students there's something upstairs. I'm like, you know where the game room is? Just go upstairs. So we're directly above the game room. For the Brownsville campus and the Edinburgh campus is at U Center. If you go in the door, just turn to the right. The other things that are in that building, in case you're not familiar with it, the UTRGV food pantries in the same building, student accessibility services, military and veteran success center.
Okay.
And it's that 3-story on the Bronx Trail.
Okay.
So you can just walk in and say, hey, I'm a student, I'd like to see services. Or you can call us. Our phone number, it doesn't matter if you call the Brownsville or Edinburgh campus, you're going to be answered at the same place, but our phone numbers are 956-882-3897 or 665-2574. So all they're going to ask you is, are you a student? Can I have your student ID number? What's your name? They're not going to ask you, why do you need to see a counselor? That's for you and your therapist to talk about. So feel free to either call or walk in and make that. So you'll make a screening appointment, and depending on what time of the semester, if we're real busy or not, it'll be anywhere from a couple days to a week or so before you get in to see a therapist. And so you'll go in and you'll see the therapist, you'll meet with one of us, and you'll fill out some paperwork before you see us. We'll review it, and then we'll just kind of have a chit chat, and I'll ask you a few more questions, and then we'll make a determination of if and what type of therapy is appropriate. And our therapy will be anywhere from what we call brief therapy, which may actually be a single session, or it could be up to 4 sessions. Or if it's more intense, we'll do a little bit more in-depth type of screening, maybe even with a formal diagnosis.
Oh, wow.
And then long-term, and the long-term could be the rest of your time here, or it could be 10 sessions or whatever. And so we go from there. And so we do formal diagnosis. That's one of the things. Can you diagnose? Yes, we have. All of our therapists, we're either licensed professional counselors, licensed clinical social workers, or clinical psychologists. So we're all board certified, state certified, just like you find on the outside.
Wow, it's really awesome to learn. I would have, like I say, I would have never guessed that, but
Yep.
it's kind of, I feel like a lot of times people feel that services on campus may not be exactly the same as you would find outside, like you mentioned,
Right.
going outside and seeking outside help.
Sure, absolutely. We can even, we don't provide psychiatric services, say if medication was indicated or warranted, I have the ability to refer you to a psychiatrist, either one of the UTRGV psychiatrists, or we have an outside provider. And guess what? Except for medication, we pay for it all. So
Wow.
even the student, if I refer you to psychiatry, we pay for the psychiatrist, but you would have to pay out of pocket or with insurance if you happen to have it. That's another good thing. We don't ask about insurance. So if you don't have insurance, it's not even a question we ask.
Cool.
So no insurance required, no other qualification. The only qualification again we ask is, are you a currently enrolled UTRGV student? If you say yes, the screening process is complete, and now we fill out the rest of the demographic type of thing.
Okay. That's really awesome. And so you had mentioned earlier about some workshops. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so every semester it varies, okay? A lot of times it varies. We're very student-driven, we're customer-driven, of course. And we we listen to the students and what they need and what they want. We know that there's reoccurring things. We traditionally, every semester, run either workshops or groups, and the difference between a group is kind of the length. A group might last 8 or even 12 weeks. And you're kind of expected to go through all the sessions type of thing. You'll go through as kind of a cohort. There'll be anywhere from 3 or 4, maybe 8 other like-minded people that are in the group. And there's a short screening process to make sure you're appropriate for the group.
Okay.
Moderated or you work with a therapist. And so that's a group. A workshop is kind of like we do them sometimes during the summer, because the summer semesters are really short.
Mhm.
We'll do a workshop where you don't even have to attend all of them. You can attend one or two. They might have different topics.
Mhm.
I'll give you some examples of some of the groups that we're running now.
Okay.
One of them is called The Struggle is Real. It's kind of working with anxiety and depression, which is quite common.
Mhm.
And so we'll work through different things. We'll work through your own purpose. We'll use a lot of mindfulness techniques,
Yeah.
Grounding techniques. I love doing that. If you are my client, you're going to hear about me talking about self-care a lot. And so I go through a lot of that. But it's not all just about in the group. So you're going to have like things you need to do outside of the sessions, and that goes for both individual and these groups.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not just, oh, I show up for an hour and we talk and now it's over and I see you next week. No, there's a whole process. The hard part actually happens outside of group. I consider myself kind of a tour guide in your mental health journey, right? I don't cure you. I don't know anything like that. I help you learn techniques, coping skills. For life, you get to take these with you forever. And so that's what we do. Now, workshop some of the groups we're doing right now. Again, The Struggle is Real. We've done some interpersonal processing groups, working with relationships, loneliness. That was a big one, of course, during pandemic, because we had social isolation. We had folks that
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
And we're still seeing the effects of that, because remember, some of the college students now were in junior high during pandemic, or high school during pandemic, and we lost a lot of those social skills, and we're still struggling with that. So we still have these interpersonal processing groups.
Yeah, I see that pretty often in terms of the UTRGV students Facebook group. You know, a lot of times people are just posting like, hey, I need some friends, you know, and it's really awesome to see that, because they're recognizing it themselves,
Right.
you know, like, hey, you know, I don't know whether they're just at home all the time or whatever, and they just want somebody to go out with and do something with. And I feel like, you know, social media, even before the pandemic, changed that for a lot of people, because now we can just interact so easily online. But, you know, that's only, you know, the human interaction is really where you get that bond versus just like,
Through that.
you know, just through a screen.
You know, and we, of course, during pandemic, we were forced into that pivot. Now we're seeing kind of the opposite pivot. It's like, I'm getting clients come in and say, hey, Richard, I want to socially interact, but I don't know even who do I talk to? How do I get involved? You know, and some of our solutions, join a club here at UTRG. We've got how many? I don't know how lots of them here.
Definitely.
Just about anything any kind of hobby or interest you have, we have a club. Join a club. You know, interact with a group. Start working with a study group.
Yeah,
study groups are fantastic,
Yeah.
right? So we work on that. You know, that's kind of interprocessing group. One of our clinical interns has a really unique group this semester that he's running. I think they're still open, but I'm not sure. It's called Exploring Queer Identity. And so we're working on that. It's dedicated to LGBTQ plus group. And he's just, how do you shape your life? How do you cope? And so again, most of these groups are like-minded people. Some of the groups that we run year-round, kind of pivoting back to the veterans community. I'm the peer facilitator. I facilitate a year-round group for military veterans.
Nice.
Yep.
Year-round, huh?
Year-round, and we do it every single Friday from noon till 13:30. That's 1:30 for you civilians. 13:30 in the afternoon. Every Friday, rain or shine. Even when we're on break, even when we're not in session, we run it. And I have a couple of my peer leaders that'll take care of it if I'm not there. They've been around long. One of my guys, retired Navy guy. He got here. He was actually on terminal leave, so technically still in the Navy when he started.
Wow.
Yeah, when he started college. And
That's
now
really funny, because I was on terminal leave when I started college.
Oh, okay, yeah. So what terminal leave means, you're technically still in the military, but you're kind of released from duty, and now you're starting. You had a bunch of vacation saved up, and you're still taking it and getting paid. That was a nice thing. I had 2 months terminal when I got out. But anyway, so he started his academic journey here on terminal leave, still technically in the Navy, and he's fixing to start the PhD program in engineering.
Oh,
so he's been around a long time. He was one of my original OGs. So we do that. So that's one of the groups that we run as well, is the peer group. We're very happy that it's sponsored by the Military and Veteran Success Center and the Counseling Center. So it's a we're doing it together. Myself and then again all the wonderful staff over at MVSC. That's some of the groups that we do. Some of the other workshops we do. One of the really important ones that I helped develop is what we call recovery ally training, and that's in the addiction side.
Okay.
And what this training is for, it's a 2-hour block of instruction. It's all online, although we originally developed it in person, and it was pre-pandemic. We ran it 2 sessions before pandemic. Then lockdown happened, and we're like, what do we do? So we converted it, like everything, into
Zoom sessions
online. Yeah, exactly. And it was hugely successful. And what it is, it's about addictions, and this is one of those tough things to talk about. How do you talk to your friends and family and colleagues and about addictions when you're not a professional? Right? What are the words I can use? What should I say? Here's the other important, what are my resources? So you and I talk about addictions, what's next? And so the 2-hour block of instructions, it's a little bit of psycho ed, but we're not going to bore you with, here's PowerPoints, here's marijuana, here's alcohol. We all know what that is, okay? We cover that very briefly. We don't cover about neuroplasticity of the brain and all that, maybe a little bit, just talk on it, so that people understand that addiction is an actual chemical imbalance. It's not a moral issue. It's not, the old school stuff. One of the cultural things is, can't you just get over it? Just quit drinking or quit gambling or quit X, whatever, social media or whatever.
Yeah. And just real quick, in our human genetics program, that's actually part of the course curriculum is, we do get a few classes in terms of, the, what's the word, like the dopamine and the neurochemicals. I can't
Neurochemicals, yeah.
And so you kind of start to realize that, like, hey, one of the most interesting things I found in those classes where you don't even need the chemical itself, just the thought, like, hey, when I get off work, I'm gonna go get that beer, and just that thought starts to like raise your dopamine levels, and like starts to get you kind of in that state of like excitement, essentially.
Yeah. And one of the things is, and we always talk about it as chemical, right? But other addictions create the same thing, gambling, for instance, or social media, or pornography, or what it actually creates the same chemical reactions in the brain, and it becomes a true addiction. So it's not just turning it off because our brain wants more and more and more and more. Because if you've ever taken a biology course or a human anatomy course, we're programmed for pleasure. Our brain is programmed for pleasure.
And sweets and fats. And
why? Yeah, right? Yeah. If they told us whole wheat was bad for us, would we eat more whole wheat? I don't know. Are we programmed that way? But the back to the recovery ally training. So it's a 2-hour block, and it part of it is psycho ed, but we tone that way down because no one wants to sit. College students don't want to sit through another 2-hour block of PowerPoints. Oh my God! So we take the real casual approach to it, and then we do some interacting and a little bit of practice on. So how do we talk to people? It really comes down to it. We're very upfront, we are not teaching people how to be counselors or therapists. We're teaching people how to be friends and what kind of resources to use, and one of the things is Google is your friend. If you don't know where a resource is outside of UTRGV, such as Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous or Al-Anon or anything like that, Google it. Because those agencies have wonderful websites that'll tell you, here in Brownsville, where's my closest AA meeting if I need to go to it or whatnot. For UTRGV, if you're a UTRGV student, you can just Google the UTRGV Counseling Center, and all my links and resources are there. So it's not one of those things, there's a test afterwards, right? And what are your resources? Give me 10 resources. It's not like that. So you do get a graduation certificate at the end, or certificate of participation. Some professors, especially in the addiction side, I teach on the addiction side. Some of us will give extra credit for the students, but that's up to the professor for attending.
Okay.
But that's one of the recovery ally training is really good. Some of the other workshops that we run, like during the summer and other times, is the anxiety toolbox. Communication and boundaries, that's a really big one that we work on. UTRGV is a really unique university because we're a commuter college versus, say, University of Texas Austin, where most students either live in apartments, they don't live at home. But look at our demographic here, they live at home. Some of the students here walk to school because they live in the neighborhood, right? Including in Edinburgh. So we're very unique. They live at home, and they're full-fledged adults, but they're still living with mom and dad or whoever.
Mm-hmm.
So that communication and boundaries is sometimes it's blurred, and so we do a lot of work with that.
Well, that's great to hear, because I have seen it, kind of firsthand in terms of people wanting to kind of be an adult and make their own choices,
Right.
but they live at home with mom and dad,
Right.
and mom or dad shut it down, and then so you create that kind of tension, and it's hard. For me, it's one of those things where, like, home is kind of your one place on earth where you should be able to go and decompress, not go and still feel that tension of, like, hey, I have tension at work, and
Right.
and then I have to carry it at home, and it's just a never-ending kind of pressure pot you're in.
Right. And other pressures at home. We do have a lot of, first-generation college students here,
Mhm.
right? And they live at home, and maybe the parents didn't go to college themselves and don't quite understand the struggles of college life or how much time it really takes to study.
Yeah.
So you went to school, and then like high school, you may or may not even have homework when you come home, right? Now you've got a ton of homework, but
Mhm.
mom or dad still wants you to participate around the house, and you're like, but I have homework.
Yeah.
Why didn't you get it done at school? So that is a struggle and real, and how do we set up those communications? How do we convey that? How do we set boundaries? Again, you're a full-fledged adult, like you were talking about.
Mhm.
I want my autonomy.
Yeah.
I want to be able to go out with my friends. Well, what do you mean I have to be home at 10 o'clock at night? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we work on that, and it's not just, don't just say no.
Mhm.
It's how do I effectively communicate that to my family and friends?
Mhm.
Yeah. So those are just some of them. Again, we do grief workshops. If something, say a tragic event happens on campus or with something like that, we will visit, by invitation only, we will visit departments and work on grief counseling. Some of the other training we provide all the time is suicide prevention training. We have a new model that we're using. I know a lot of the faculty and staff or even students here have heard of ASK or UPR training for suicide prevention. We have a new one that we rolled out last summer. We all went to the University of Texas Austin and got trained in this. And the nice thing about this new Campus Connect program for suicide prevention is it's tailorable. So meaning we can tailor it to the demographic here. Where the other programs were like really rigid, you had to stick to the syllabus and stay on it. We have the ability to tailor it to our demographic and all that. So we do this program, it's about an hour and a half long. We do it to different groups. We do it open campus, all students, faculty and staff are invited as well. We always teach the dormitories, people always ask us to come in and train the RAs on this because they're a frontline, right? So
Yeah,
we don't like to use that gatekeeper training term anymore because we don't want to keep the training away from anybody, right?
Yeah.
We want to, so we call them frontline.
Cool.
So they're our frontline people, our allies.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that's some of the training that we provide year-round as a service to our college community, including some of the faculty and staff. Because again, one of the misnomers about counseling centers, we only just sit there in our office in our dark little cubby holes.
Mhm.
You come in and it's like, okay, what's your problem? Okay, next.
Yeah.
What's your next? No, we're very proactive. We do a lot of outreach. Our kind of philosophy at the counseling center is we like to work upstream, meaning not just reactive. We want to be very proactive in our
Mhm.
approach. That's why we do.
That's great to hear.
Right? You'll see us doing a lot of tabling events. I'm doing one this Saturday. For the incoming freshmen. They're doing
Cool.
freshman orientation, so we'll be out there doing tabling. We do presentations. We even do presentations for the incoming student body to their parents and family. We'll go and explain it to them in both English and Spanish. By the way, we have counselors that will counsel in Spanish. We do
Awesome.
presentations in Spanish as well. Any other languages, we have to kind of work on an accommodation for that on a case-by-case basis.
All right, well, we're going to take another quick music break, and it's not going to be Shania Twain this time. Sorry about playing that song twice in a row, everyone. But be sure to stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Thanks.
I do want to plug Timely Care.
Okay.
Have you heard of Timely Care yet?
Yeah.
It's been a godsend.
Really? Nice.
It's opened up for the students a whole lot. a stress, academic stress as we call it, and it's justified. A lot of testing's going on, final projects, presentations. Not all of us are the best at standing up in front of the podium with the professor looking on and all our colleagues, all our classmates, right? And so it's completely understandable. Not everybody's a natural. Even if sometimes you're a natural, you freeze up and walk out and you're like, oh.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? We all have that kind of mind. That happened to me actually not long ago. I had to give a presentation, impromptu presentation to about 40 other veteran leaders here in the community. And
wow.
I'm really good at presenting, and all of a sudden I'm like, my name is, and looking at my name tag up. So it happens to all of us, right? So that anxiety is real. And we encourage you, hey, first come in, right? No problem's too small. People want to say they downplay their own small. Oh, it's small. People have bigger problems. We did that in the military, right?
Yeah.
You know, oh, the other guy, well, I'm not going on sick call because someone else is working. Well, same here at the college. Oh, it's just anxiety. It's test taking anxiety. No, come in. Let's talk talk about it. Let's find you some other assets such as the learning center, tutoring, PLTL, all the wonderful things that UTRGV provides for student success. But come in. You know, let me work with you, or let us work with you on some meditation, some relaxation techniques, breathing exercises. Until I learned how to do them and practiced them, I didn't really believe in them. Once I really started practicing and understanding the concepts behind some of these grounding exercises, progressive muscle relaxation techniques, all these things that we can learn and do them. You don't need a therapist to do these, by the way. You just do them on your own if you want. But they really, really do work, but you need to practice them. Yeah. So let me give you some tools that you can take into the classroom with you for when you're getting ready to take a test or do a presentation. You know, again, we talked about tutoring and work and study groups, big time. Work with your peers, get up in front of there and do that. You know, understanding that our medical condition, our mental health condition are completely intertwined. You and I were talking a little bit earlier before the program, how one of the good things with the new medical doctors, medical professionals, nurses included, all the other medical professionals are starting to understand how our medical health and our mental health are intertwined. You can't slice them apart.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, yes, I get it. You can't put mental health under a microscope. I get that. There's no diagnostic blood test for it. Now there might be medical indications that, you know, but so the question is, did my stress come from a medical condition or my medical condition come from stress? I'm like, I don't know, but we're going to find out. We're going to talk both to the medical folks, like Student Health Services, which is another free services here on campus, and we'll work together and see what's going on. So we also work with Student Health Services as well. Student advising. Student accommodations. We work very closely with them. Maybe I can help get accommodations for test taking and whatnot. I would have to do a diagnosis and write a letter, but we can do those kind of things. We have some other things, especially this time of year. So the question comes up, well, what's your business hours? And it's like regular business hours, pretty much 8 to 5, Monday through Friday type of thing. We have a lot of students that are like, but I work, or I go to school all the time. What do I do? Yeah. Can you provide service? Well, the answer is, I can't, but I have something for you. So we have a program called Timely Care. I hope you've seen it. We have posters all around. If not, go to our UTRGV counseling website or on our Instagram webpage. So Timely Care will provide a multitude of services. Okay, the one is what if I just need to talk to someone right now, and I don't really need long term. Well, there's a feature on there called Talk Now. Okay, nice. So you can talk to a therapist or a counselor one time, just like, hey, I'm really stressed out about this exam. What can I? And it's Saturday, and my exam's Monday, and my therapist isn't there. Go to Talk Now. Well, what if I need more scheduled counseling? Like I do need counseling for 4 sessions, 5 sessions, something like that, because I have depression, anxiety, grief, whatever, but I only have Saturday afternoons available. Well, again, go back to the Timely Care. Use your UTRGV credentials, enroll, and you can schedule a counselor there. And guess what? Again, all free. We pay for it all.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, I think those things are important because, you know, a lot of times all that stress feels, you know, especially with the finals rolling up, like, whenever I was an undergrad, I was taking 6, you know, like 5 to 6 classes per semester,
Right.
and man, having 6 finals in one semester is no fun, and it was just the worst. So
Yeah, I took 4 courses in grad school once, and that was like horrible. I will never do that again. I never, it was one time.
yeah, and I, you know, like you mentioned, you know, those breathing techniques. I've mentioned it in you know, previous episodes of this show that really those breathing techniques have saved me so many times, because, you know, I'll start to feel maybe not necessarily, well, I guess like a bit of an anxiety attack, I guess
Right.
you can call it, you know. But then you just start to breathe, and it just kind of helps you, you know, kind of ride the waves, and then, you know, you get through whatever you're going through, and you start to feel better. And of course, the mindful meditation is very important.
Very
That's
important.
another thing I always preach, because it's so easy to beat ourselves up. And but it's always important to know that you are capable, you are worthy, you know, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I feel like, you know, you just mentioned, you know, a lot of times people just don't probably seek services because they feel like, oh, I mean, I stubbed my toe, quote unquote, you know, I have
Right.
a small, what might feel like a small issue to them, even though it's eating them up inside,
Yeah.
versus like somebody who went through something traumatic, like a car accident or losing a loved one or something like that.
You know, and you bring that up and talk about a car accident. You and I could be riding in a car accident, and we have a major car accident, roll over or whatnot, but you and I perceive it differently because
Mhm.
we're 2 different humans,
Yeah.
right? And I may just brush it off, you know, like, oh, whatever, we're still alive, it didn't kill me.
Mhm.
But it could be a different for you, right? So
Mhm.
there's no too small. There's no too small. I would rather see you in the beginning, again, proactive.
Mhm.
Let's work on that. Let's give you some skills so that if something does happen, you can instantly rely on those skills.
Mhm.
It's transferable skills.
Yeah, and it's important to kind of build those tools in your toolbox, because one thing I always tell people, you know, there's a billion self-help books out there in terms of different, you know, whether it's learning. One of my favorite ones is How to Win Friends and Influence People. Such a great book. But the trouble comes with being able to identify a situation, so you can, you know, it's you have those tools because you've read all these self-help books, but you know, it's one thing to read it and understand it versus being able to implement it day to day, and it takes a lot of self-training, and
Right.
and that's why you mentioned earlier, like, hey, we give you, you know, the sessions, but it's up to you when you leave these doors to kind of put them to use.
Yeah, I kind of equate that to if you're a football fan, let's say you happen to be a Cowboys fan or whoever, is they don't go out on that game day and just expect to be able to perform. They practiced before
Mhm.
game day. And so we practice these techniques, and game day can be considered a crisis, or if I'm having trouble sleeping, if I have sleep disorder or whatever, well, now it's game day.
Mhm.
But I didn't practice, so I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. Well, let's go to practice first.
Yeah. And I feel like that's part of a lot of the students' anxiety in terms of giving presentations, or for me, the way I feel. So I used to be a Texas State handgun instructor, and I would have like minimal anxiety putting on these classes because I got trained by the state on terms of what I had to teach. But I also I grew up on a ranch shooting guns my whole life, and then I got my military training in terms of learning how to do proper marksmanship. And so I could easily get in front of a crowd, large or small, and kind of talk about those things comfortably, versus something that I just learned this semester and I don't feel like such a subject
Right.
matter expert about. So it's a lot harder to give a presentation on something you're not so familiar with, and that's where the anxiety kind of sets in, because it's like, hey man, I'm not even sure about this myself, and I'm
Right.
supposed to give a presentation on it.
Yeah, good point. You know, so practice, 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 and that's not only practice for your presentation, but practice those anti-anxiety or calming techniques, as we call them. You know.
Yeah, and you had mentioned the grounding stuff earlier, you know, the grounding technique. And for me, when I've only been to my ranch, so I have a ranch around the Freer area, Duval County, you know, probably about 3 hours or so from Brownsville. That's why I don't go out as much as I'd like to out there, because it's 3 hours one-way trip. And but you know, this past fall, winter, I was out there, you know, I had my fire out there just by myself on my
Nice.
hammock. And it was like really like soothing for my soul, like, wow, like I miss this so much. And I just started like touching the dirt, and I didn't realize I was like grounding, because, you know, most people probably associate grounding with like, hey, take your shoes off
Right.
and let the, you know, your feet touch
Put your
the
feet in
earth.
the sand, yeah.
But for me, you know, I was just in my hammock laying, and I just started kind of like playing with the dirt.
Sure. Whatever works.
Yeah, it was really like I said, you could just kind of feel the waves of just like relief come over you, and it's like, man, this is awesome. I need to start doing this more often, you know. But most of the year it's so hot, you know, even at night it might be close to 100 degrees.
Right? Yeah, I know.
So that's why I try to go
And
out
the mosquitoes.
as much as I can during the fall or winter, whenever it cools down a little bit.
Good deal.
So yeah, we have a few more minutes, Richard, and we have 3 to 5 minutes. If there's, you know, the mic is yours. Anything you want to finish off with?
You know, again, I encourage all students, utilize the services that are, not just our services at the counseling center, but all the services here at UTRGV, because we're all intertwined. We all help each other out. One team, one fight, so to speak. With our mental health services, please remember, it's very confidential.
Mm-hmm.
I get questions of, you know, hey, I drink beer and I'm 19. Well, I'm not a cop.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I'm not allowed to report,
Mm-hmm.
you know, with a few exceptions, you know, and those would be explained.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very, very rare exceptions. Okay? So don't be afraid to come in and talk to us about that.
Mm-hmm.
I have relationship problems. I have communication problems. I stumped my toe. Well, okay, well, let's work on that too.
Mm-hmm.
There's no stumping your toes. No, it was an injury. It hurts.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's, you know, whatever. It's anything from addictions to communications to, I have a previous diagnosis. That's fine. Let's work together on that too as well. But we have a lot of students that come in, a lot of clients that come in with previous diagnoses.
Mhm.
That's fine. We can work with that. Thank you for telling me that. Thank you for disclosing. But yeah, we really try to do a lot of outreach. Come join us. Take a look at our Instagram page daily. That's where you'll see a lot of updates. We do have the UTRGV Counseling Center website. We do not have Facebook, but we have a website. You can kind of meet us all virtually, at least see our pictures
Mhm.
and who we are and what we do. And we do advertise our groups. And you'll look at the very beginning of the semesters, maybe the second or third week, and that's when we formulate the groups and start them. Some of the groups you can just sign up for yourself, and other ones you need to go through a little bit of a screening process just to make sure you're appropriate. We don't want to formulate a group and then find out, well, that's not really for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, some great advice. And one thing I'd like to kind of finish with is just to say that, you know, seeking these services isn't a sign of weakness. It's a
No.
sign of strength.
Strength.
And it takes a lot to, you know, take those first steps in terms of getting your mental health back and your sanity back, I guess you could say, because, you know, we all deal with a lot in terms of school and life, and it doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter what your job title is or who you are, you know, life hits us all hard, and it comes and it goes. You know, what I always try to tell people is you should never try to get too high with the highs. You know, it's great to have that win and get that promotion or get whatever, but life is going to come and slap you around, and it's important not to get too low with
True
those
that.
lows, you know, because it's only you know, moments in time, and if we stay level-headed and work through them, we can get
Yeah.
through them and move on.
That's your life experience speaking right there. That's
Yeah.
not textbook.
All right, well, thank you so much, Richard.
Thank you. I
yeah.
appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me over.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you, and you know, hopefully we can have you back on
Sure,
again in the fall.
absolutely. Love to.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for staying tuned in. DJ Galicia Kids here to just remind you to stay curious, stay healthy, and let's thrive together, RGV.